Good afternoon. This is the February 5th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. We would ask that you please turn your cell phones off, and if you need to take a call, please step outside. Paula, will you please read the roll?
Patrick Gaines.
Present.
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne.
Present.
Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Neela Crank-Clements.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Roland Tague.
Here.
Ann Zachritz.
Present.
You have quorum.
Thank you. Just to explain the meeting process, the director will read the case. The commissioners will discuss the case. If the applicant is here, they're free to make comment and answer any questions that we have. If you would like to make a comment as the public on a case, please come up to the podium and let us know. And we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes so that we can move through the process. The commissioners will take one of 4 motions. They can approve the CA, they can continue the application, they can deny with prejudice, or deny without prejudice. If they deny without prejudice, it means the applicant may reapply. Also, please note that if a CA is approved, there's a 10-day waiting period to allow for those appeals, and the staff will get with you and get your letter of approval. Office of the Preservation Officer, Katie.
I wanted to just alert everyone that the Statewide Historic Preservation Conference for this year is going to be in Norman in June, and that information's on the agenda, and registration will be up for that on the State Historic Preservation Office's website in the next couple of months, and we'll be following up, reminding the commission, seeing who wants to attend. And then this isn't on our agenda, but I wanted to say that our offices have been closed since Friday because of technical issues, flooding, and so we missed our filing deadline for the March meeting, but we will still accept applications through Friday of this week if people were coming to our office trying to apply and obviously couldn't reach anyone. So we expect to be back in the office tomorrow and can take those applications in.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments about the acceptance of the minutes from the January 3rd meeting?
Just testing to see if you guys.
We're just waiting. Do we have a motion of approval?
I move acceptance of the minutes.
We have a motion for approval by Roland Tague, a second by Neela Crank-Clements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Code enforcement. Woods.
Good afternoon. I'll take any questions on the report. The only thing I'll add that's not on the report is court cases for 416 Northwest 29th Street. Some people may be familiar with the property. I have 2 current citations that will be in court this Friday.
Okay. Do we have any questions from any commissioners? All right. Thank you very much. That was easy. Continuance announcements, requests? Seeing none. Public hearings, there's nothing on the consent docket today.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we move item 7A up in the agenda to right now due to the number of folks that are here today.
Okay, we have a motion from Alan Brown to move up item 7A, SPED 747. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zachritz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
This is SPUD 747 at 100 Northwest 22nd Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 2 Ward 6 by Redbud Incorporated by David Box, Esquire 2. Request recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the request to rezone from Historic Preservation District Urban Conservation Overlay Northwest 23rd and I-235 overlay to a simplified planned unit development with development occurring under, and the agenda says under HP and C3 zoning regulations. It's actually only the C3 with specific uses, height, size, and setback lines called out. We do have 2 letters from the public. We, because we haven't been in our offices all week, weren't able to make copies of these for everyone, but I'll just read them and then we can pass them down if people want to look. The first letter is from the Heritage Hills East Neighborhood Association and says, to the Historic Preservation Commission, the Heritage Hills East Neighborhood Association opposes SPUD 747 at 100 Northwest 22nd and requests that the Commission deny the application. There is no precedent for removing parts of a neighborhood from a historic preservation district once this district is established. The area for the proposed SPUD contains 1 remaining historic house, which would probably be demolished if this SPUD were approved. The property has had a poor history. There were originally 3 homes on these lots. 2 were allowed to deteriorate in violation of city ordinance until they reached a point where they had to be demolished. The owner is not maintaining the 3rd house and apparently has decided that demolition by neglect is an appropriate way to manage property in a historic district. It is a poor public policy to allow those who violate the law to profit from this behavior. All the lots facing Winans Park were put into the Historic Preservation District along with the park when the district was formed many years ago. It was felt that by zoning this park frontage property in this way, residential development would be encouraged and the park would be saved from becoming a median. Redevelopment of the park is restricted by covenants on the original gift of land to the city by the donor. The neighborhood has adopted the park through Oklahoma City Beautiful since the inception of this program. We work with the firemen assigned to the station in the park to maintain the area. The elimination of the residential connection to this park will ensure that the park becomes neglected and abandoned. The neighborhood remains firmly opposed to any non-residential development on this land. It is not just about these lots, but about the entire perimeter of the neighborhood and the park. Our association has worked for over 35 years to stop blight and neglect in this area. Allowing the SPUD to proceed will negatively impact our entire neighborhood. And that's signed Randall Ice, President, Heritage Hills East Neighborhood Association. We also received an email from Bill Simons, the Vice President of Heritage Hills East Neighborhood Association. It states, my family moved into our home at 114 Northwest 22nd Street 37 years ago. Our son and daughter attended Wilson Elementary School, and our 2 granddaughters are current students at the same school and live across the street at 119 Northwest 22nd. Several years ago, our neighborhood was designated an historic preservation area in order to preserve this family environment, and the area has prospered under this protection. The house is located at 100-104 Northwest 22nd and 2215 North Broadway were purchased as residential property and allowed to dilapidate in spite of numerous citations from the city to repair the structures. They then progressed over the past 10 years from low rent to weekly rent to vacant to vagrant occupation to condemned to overgrown lot with transient with alcohol, drugs, and theft. Now, after holding our neighborhood hostage for many years, the owner wishes to sell these properties at a large profit as commercial property. Even though it is zoned Historic Preservation District, single-family residential, it was advertised for commercial development. As another example of encroachment, the loan company across the street, located at 105 and 109, purchased the residential property next to them at 115 Northwest 22nd, and even though it is zoned HP R1, they have torn out the backyard and put in a gravel parking lot for their businesses next door. Commercial encroachment is a continuing problem. Rezoning these properties to anything other than HP will destroy the integrity of neighborhoods that we have worked so hard to maintain. It opens the door to erode all of our historic preservation districts. Please vote no on February 5th on the proposal to rezone these properties. I know we have several people from the public here to speak as well.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Christy Moreau is with me. She is the applicant. She's the one of the owners of Mariposa Medical Spa. I do think it's important to note that Ms. Moreau is not the current owner of the property. She's under contract for it, so she is not the person that let the structures that Ms. Friddle discussed fall into disrepair. She is a person that owns a business in the community and is looking to hopefully make an upgrade to the property and make it something that is compatible with the neighborhood and sensitive to the neighborhood. When Ms. Moreau came to our office, we told her what challenges lie ahead with this piece of property. She was committed to this because she is a person that's been in this vicinity. She's just south of here for quite some time, and she has a loyal client base that is near here. So when we set out to do it, we knew that we were going to have to undertake some form of zoning process, knowing that the SPUD is the most sensitive way to handle a zoning process. That's what we did. Straight zoning wouldn't work because it allows all kinds of uses and becomes problematic. An SPUD allows us to specify not only the uses that can happen there, but also architectural standards, setback standards, parking standards, all those things that are necessary to ensure that these two parcels can still complement the neighborhood. And what we have before you is our proposal. And we recognize that it's a challenge and it's not something that the neighbors want to see zoned out of HP. But I think it is important when you look at the zoning map that you have before you from the city's website, as you traverse north from 13th Street on the west side of Broadway, almost the entirety of that is notched out of HP with various commercial districts. You have straight C4, which is the most intense commercial district that this city has. It's a commercial district that is no longer granted by right. So as you go up north, there's only 3 blocks that don't have some element of commercial, that being the blocks from 19th to 22nd. Now, the significance of that is what we're asking for is not something out of the norm. It's not something that is going to create a negative precedent. Commercial exists up and down Broadway, but what this provides, and the others don't, is a sensitive commercial. We will have to comply with what you have in the SPUD. We are limited to the uses that Ms. Moreau has put in her SPUD, whereas all the C4 uses, they can do everything you can imagine in a commercial district. Those things probably aren't compatible with a neighborhood. One of the most important factors that limit this, if you can go back to the slide that was just up there. One more. Oh, yeah, that's fine. This site is now largely vacant. And if you look directly across the street to the north, and 2 of the pictures I gave you show what is directly across the street, you have a piece of property that's zoned straight C4. And what you have is a series of loan operations, credit jewelry, and payday loans and check cashing facilities. Those facilities directly across the street are what's going to limit this property from being redeveloped as single-family residential. So what we have is an opportunity to turn this into another type of development. Now, we have a C3 notation in our SPUD, but what we're proposing is not a traditional commercial development. It is a medical spa. It is a medical service provider. So it's not your typical C3. And because it's a medical service, it's more of a neighborhood-oriented type of service. So we think it is certainly a compatible use when you look at all the other uses that are around there. And so the next question we ask, well, what about the building? This is the building that we have proposed, and this is how it sits on the site. What we have done is eliminated any access from 22nd Street. We think that's important to further limit any sort of intrusion into the neighborhood. Our only point of access will be onto Broadway. That will further... Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you? The entryway right there is Broadway.
Yes.
Okay, and the borders on the north and the south?
22nd Street.
Right.
And the property line to the south. Do you have an aerial? We don't go all the way to 21st.
All the way to 21st?
We do not go all the way to 21st. Okay. We go halfway through that block. So yeah, our northern boundary is 22nd Street, eastern boundary is Broadway, and what we've done is limited the access to just the one on Broadway. So what that does is that allows us to have this really nice chunk of land on 22nd Street that will provide for a lot of landscaping and a lot of buffering to help reduce any impact to the neighborhood. So then if we look to the west, knowing that there is a person that lives there, there's a home there, what we've done is forced an enormous amount of landscaping to that western boundary to provide a nice buffer that now they don't have. When we had a neighborhood meeting, several people talked about what these two sites had become, and they mentioned things like a public urinal And they mentioned things like a place where homeless people are continuing to have sex. Well, what this does is shields this site from those things. We will have an opportunity to create a nice visual buffer, a nice green buffer, and provide a site that takes access on Broadway, thereby limiting the ability to traverse into the neighborhood. At first, we looked at the idea of possibly including the HL designation within our SPUD. The problem that we faced is what you see before you is the way that the site works. We can't shift it around because we lose the ability to have the required parking spaces. Then you would create a problem with the neighborhood with people parking. So knowing that there was no scenario in which the HL would permit what we proposed, we were forced to take it out. But this is what we're proposing. This is what would be built. So it's not a matter of trying to lay behind the log and not comply. We submitted this originally with HL, and it's still what we plan to do. It's just the HL won't allow us to do what we need to do. So we're here to answer any questions, but I think it is important to know that this site is one that it's a difficult site. Based on what you have directly across from you, I don't see it being redeveloped as single-family residential. I see it sitting here vacant for years and years. But here we have an opportunity for a building that I think is a beautiful building, a local business that provides a great service to the community, and one that will allow her to permanently place herself and her business in the community.
David, let's see if any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Box.
Yes, sir.
What, in the category of personal services restricted, what does that
I'm sorry?
Do you know what personal services restricted?
I don't know all the uses it allows. If you want some details on the specific operations that she does there, she'd be happy to come up and tell you. What we aim to do is provide the uses that allow her to conduct her business. We work with staff on this, and that's why you see retail. We didn't allow just retail. We limit it to retail sales or items incidental and accessory to the uses permitted in the SPUD. So our goal is whatever her use is, and it's a little unique. There's nothing in the code that would specifically provide for that. So we had to kind of mix a bunch of different ones, but that is the only use intended here.
Katie, do you have any idea when these C3s that are on Broadway were classified as C3s or C4s?
I'm afraid I don't know the dates for those.
Any other commissioners have any questions?
There's no exit onto 22nd Street, so the only entrance and exits are all on Broadway.
Just on Broadway. Along 22nd Street will just be, there's a pretty large public right-of-way right there.
Yeah.
So we'll have a bunch of landscaping. I don't know if we'll have to get a revocable to do that, but we're going to have nothing but landscaping, no access onto 22nd Street.
Thank you.
And can you tell, the site plan that I have is very small. Can you tell me what the setback is off of the Broadway right-of-way?
33, almost 34 feet.
And what is it off of the 22nd Street right-of-way?
That would be 69 feet.
Okay. And then from the south property line?
10 feet.
10 feet. And the west property line?
15 feet.
Thank you.
If you will, let's let us hear from the public, and we'll proceed from there.
My name is Randy Ice. I'm president of the Neighborhood Association Heritage Hills East.
All right, welcome.
You have my letter. Just a little additional information about this particular case. This commission decided to put this property in an HP district about 15 years ago from 19th to 22nd. They also put the park in the HP district. All this property was predominantly residential, still is predominantly residential. From 19th to 22nd Street, there are 7 historic homes. All right, there are 2 vacant lots and 1 business that is non-conforming. This is one of the vacant lots we're talking about here. All of this property faces the park. The park is in the HP. We start eating away at this property, those homes are going to be lost. All right? It's commercial south of 19th, but none of that's in the HP. All right? It's not even in the HL. We didn't pull any of that in because it was already developed as commercial. What we pulled in was the historic residences. Now, due to some neglect of a previous, or perhaps this present owner, these aren't the current owners, but this property has ended up vacant. All right? It would be precedent-setting to pull property out of an HP for this purpose. It would affect all the HPs in the city. They all have perimeters that are commercial. Okay? And what this would do is set a very bad example for property owners to say, go ahead, let your property deteriorate, let your property rot till the roof falls in, and then the city will let you redevelop that property commercial and let you make a lot of money down the road. I don't think this is good public policy, and I think this harms the entire historic preservation efforts here in Oklahoma City.
Randy, we had
Yes.
a case here before. I don't even remember what it was about, but I think Chris Salyer owns property in
Yes.
that area. Is this part of that?
This is that same property.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Debbie Blackburn, and I own several properties on the 100 block of Northwest 22nd. You asked the question, when did those properties, the credit jewelry and so forth, when were they zoned? They were rezoned in the 60s when the city just decided that, hey, this is along Broadway, and so that whole 100 block is going to go commercial right up to Heritage Hills' door on Robinson. It didn't happen. I can tell you I sold one of my properties in the 100 block on Northwest 22nd in the end of September, and I purchased a property in Putnam Heights, which is another HP, and I can tell you that the beautiful property that I purchased in Putnam Heights, which was an architect-designed brick stone house, appraised for less per square foot than the airplane bungalow I sold in the 100 block on Northwest 22nd. As we told the applicant's attorney in a meeting that we had, which, by the way, wasn't a full-scale neighborhood meeting, only a few people within 300 feet who were property owners were notified about this meeting. As we told him, as someone told him who is a real estate developer, that property could be developed as residential. And a developer that was there said, this could be, I would consider doing this. And you could do this. We have properties, we have just a few vacant lots in this neighborhood. I can tell you that some people have been offered $100,000 for those lots. I know one that just sold for $50,000. We have developers coming down from Edmond, leaving there now, that want to come into downtown because, fortunately, the millennials see the value of living downtown and are backing up those of us who have, for 35, 40 years, fought for this particular neighborhood. We are seeing now the fruit of that. But if this is allowed to be rezoned, and I think this is not the final plan as they told us, but what they're proposing looks like a medical building out at Valverde, out by Valverde, close to Mercy or something. It does not look historic. And as they've told us, well, they're doing us some great favor. This is not a great favor. I can tell you the HP neighborhoods, all 9 of them, have gotten together again because we've seen an onslaught start again of these attacks on our HP zoning. And one reason that that airplane bungalow that I sold in September sold for the appraised price that it did per square foot was because of HP. HP has been the godsend to these older neighborhoods. And we're finally seeing the fruit of decades of work. This is precedent-setting. It is not a great opportunity for the neighborhood. It would result in a domino effect. We've always been a good buffer for Heritage Hills. But I don't think that we could sustain this if we allowed this piece of property to go down. As Randy pointed out, you don't have on the northern end of Broadway there commercial property except for the credit jewelry. And the property that this particular applicant is now housed in is on 18th Street in Broadway, and I can tell you that their landlord got a curb cut on 18th Street through a very nice block of our neighborhood. You start this and they'll come back and want a curb cut. They assure us now there won't be any curb cut on 22nd. But I know I'm preaching to a lot of you who are of the choir, but I would just say that this is precedent setting no matter what they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Shannon Rundle, 431 Northwest 20th. The 9 HP Neighborhood Alliance met on Monday night, and there was a representative. Most of the presidents of those neighborhoods were there, and it was unanimous that this should not happen. Every HP district abuts commercial. And if we start this now, it will just be one by one by one on all the neighborhoods. And I'm with Debbie, it's a precedent and it should not be set. They should not be rezoned. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sherry Pemberton. I own the property to the west of the proposed property. The plan that you see here that talks about the existing retaining wall is my property. My property is the retaining wall and 10 feet beyond into the alleyway that's there. So I just wanted to make sure they understood that they were proposing plans on my property. I'm also a descendant of the Winans who gave that park to the city, and it's a very personal fight for me. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else from the public that would like to make comment? Okay. Yeah, briefly, if you want to.
A couple points. On the issue that this isn't the final plan, when we had our neighborhood meeting, we said we're open to changes if the neighbors had some suggestions. If their issue wasn't, absolutely not, we don't like the use, but, well, we can live with the use but some modifications. So, again, despite what you've heard, we're not trying to hide the ball here. This is what we're asking for. There is no curb cut. The way an SPUD works is if it were approved, it would become the law of this piece of land. It would require a rezoning to come in and get that curb cut. We don't want a curb cut onto 22nd Street. We only want one onto Broadway. We tried to meet with everybody within the 300-foot radius, which is required by the city, to send out notice for any zoning application. We sent out letters to everyone within the 300 feet. We didn't send out a letter to every single person that owns a piece of HP property. We thought that wouldn't be very effective. We wanted to talk to people who had legal rights within the 300 feet. So we attempted to do everything we could to meet with the neighbors. So, in closing, like I said, this is not a commercial use from our perspective. It is a service that will be provided and an opportunity for a nice facility and use to continue to maintain in this neighborhood.
A question about the retaining wall that you just mentioned. Plan looks like shows the property line on that retaining wall. She indicated that her property goes 10 feet past the...
This is a site plan. It's not an ALTA survey. Obviously, when we go to develop the property, an ALTA survey will be done and it won't be on her property.
So she could very well be correct there.
This is not a ALTA survey. This is a site plan drawn by our architect. If it's a foot off, then we'd move a foot to the east and still have the exact same plan.
Do you have any further questions by commissioners?
I'd just like to add that the properties Mr. Box referenced on 13th Street, that commercialization began in the 1930s, And I think it's ironic that his office is on the Colcord Drive, because the Colcord Mansion was one of the pivotal changes for HP, and that's why HP was started in the 60s. And the two properties on the east and west side of Hudson and 13th were beautiful homes, and they were demolished for this commercialization effort. And I just don't feel very positive at all about this application.
Rita, I don't know whether you've had, you would know about this, but can't the city make minor revisions in a SPUD without it coming before the commission?
Without it coming before this commission?
No, without, can't a developer request a minor revision in an SPUD without going before the planning commission?
I think it depends on what that revision is, and minor, of course, everybody sees that as something different. I think it would depend on what it was.
Well, specifically curb cuts was my question.
Under these circumstances, I don't think a curb cut would be seen as minor.
Okay.
Because it changes the nature of what was presented. Something that doesn't impact the neighborhood to something that directly does. So I don't think anybody would see that as...
We'd be willing to stipulate and write into the SPUD that no administrative amendment could be done for curb cuts, and it would require a rezoning. Typically, the administrative amendments only allow a 20% variance. That means, you know, a property line or a building height, you could amend up to 20%. Ms. Talley's correct. It's not something substantive like this, but to further protect, we'd be willing to write that into the SPUD.
Does anybody know, Katie, or anybody know of a HP district that was partially, you know, a parcel rezoned for commercial? I can't remember that ever happening.
No, as far as I'm aware, I don't think we've ever changed the boundaries of a district to make it smaller.
Didn't a part of Paseo went from HL overlay, but it went to a UDC overlay, didn't it?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
The commercial
portion of
Paseo was moved from the commission to the urban design overlay.
That's not a change in the...
It really wasn't a change in the use. It was kind of a change in the review process for those buildings.
Marva?
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Sartell, Heritage Hills. There's never been a lot that's been in HP ever taken out of HP, except maybe to go from HP to HL. And I'm a little distressed that, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, I'm a little distressed that it seems that this is even being considered. I mean, it's obvious that Heritage Hills East doesn't want it. It's obvious that the 9 historic preservation neighborhoods don't want it. And it doesn't matter if it was the most fabulous design in the world. It doesn't need to be there. And so I just...
Well, it's kind of the law. He gets to come.
He gets to come and talk. But, but I mean, to me, it's not about setbacks. It's not about curb cuts. It's that it's not an allowed use for that zoning, and the neighborhood wants to keep that zoning. And so I would just ask you all to consider that as our underlying purpose.
Appreciate it. Okay, any further questions by commissioners? Do we have a motion? Or no motion?
Hey, Rita, would we need findings for a motion in this case?
Yes, you would need specific ones. What you're doing is providing a recommendation, and so in order for your recommendation to be effective, you'll need to say why it is that you're recommending the way that you are.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to deny the application. Specific findings that some level of commercial use at this location may not be entirely incompatible, but that removal of any historic preservation-minded controls, either in the form of current HP zoning or in the addition of an HL overlay, would be contrary to the purpose of the designation of the Heritage Hills East as a historic district. 3, that there are numerous properties throughout the Oklahoma City historic districts that are adjacent to commercial properties with various types of characters. And that 4, to remove the preservation zoning from a site because of what is nearby could initiate a domino effect of boundaries shrinking and chipping away as commercial revitalization continues on the denser edges of historic districts.
We have a motion for denial on SPUD 747 by Jeffrey Parks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zackritz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
This was actually a recommendation rather than approve or deny, so
All right.
it's
We passed a recommendation. Thanks.
So, just so the record's clear, the motion, I believe, needs to be something different than what was made. I mean, we need to make a motion recommending rather than a motion to deny. There's nothing at issue to approve or deny here.
Well, that's what we were just talking about. The motion that was required, the request was for a recommendation from this body regarding the request. So, as I heard it, the recommendation was to deny the request to rezone.
Right.
Is that what you intended?
Yes, that was the intent.
Okay.
If I need to restate it, I can
No, that's
do
fine. I
that.
just want to make sure we were all clear with
Yeah.
the process.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back on individual cases for individual consideration. On the agenda under items D, HPCA 13-00153.
HPCA 13-00153 at 818 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Craig Walker by Carlos Cameron for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows required. I will note that between when these staff reports went out and this meeting, we got had some back and forth on some of the specific dimensions that are included in your packet, just some typos that the applicant took a look at and said, this one's wrong, that one's wrong, but staff has the accurate measurements in the file. They're just not included in your staff report on the window dimensions.
Does that change anything else in the application, like staff recommendation or?
No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cameron?
Yes.
There we go. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Cameron?
Do we have specific windows that are suggested?
So
I thought we were missing that.
So what they've found and presented in their application are salvaged windows that replicate or approximate the historic windows that we had photos of from the house. There were some sides of the house where we don't have old photos showing the windows, but these windows are similar and compatible in style to what was in enough of the photos that we do have that they appear to be appropriate. The vertical divisions in the upper sash and then a single sash below. So because these are salvaged products, we don't have the specs that we would often see if someone's going out and buying a new commercially made window, but they've provided the dimensions for the window openings, for the window sash, drawings for work that has to be done to the trim and the frame.
What is this cut sheet from the?
Which ones are new and which ones are old?
What we did was we went to B&B Salvage, and they have about 4,000 windows there. And we went through all those windows until we found exact windows that match. In that area, most of the builders back in the day used the same measurements, the 4/1 or the 5/1. So we went through there almost a week two guys to find all these windows, to put the exact windows that were in there originally. At the same time, I had them pull two windows, 1/1, which some of the houses there on the side, but to make sure that I did it all right, I also got the 1/4s. So if you see some of the pictures, there's 3 panes. We can do the 4/1, or we can do the 1/1 on the sides. On the front, we would do exactly what was there before, the window opening for a 5/1, and there's some old pictures that show exactly what that was. So these windows are nearly identically of what came out of there.
And so we do have specs, I'm sorry, this just got left in from a previous iteration of the application. They had come back to us at one point proposing to do a 1/1 JELD-WEN window, and that's just still included in your attachments, but that's not what they're proposing at this time.
We can go over 1/1 on the sides, or we can go over 4/1. We have both options.
So that's this sheet right here.
No, you have to go, I think that, the one I'm proposing is on page 20, no, I think it's 6. Yeah, that's an old one that you have there, that shouldn't have even been in there.
Okay, so the front windows are going to be 5/1?
5/1, that's what was originally there.
They're going to be salvage windows.
I'm sorry?
They're the salvaged windows.
The salvage windows.
Sides and the rear are going to be...
They're all going to be salvage windows.
They're all salvage, okay.
Yeah, if you look at the windows and the
All right.
pictures, in front of each window, I have the salvage windows that we recovered right in front of the windows, showing those are the ones that are going to go in there.
So the JELD-WEN is just...
Yep, those are done. That shouldn't even have been in there.
Okay.
So what's in the staff report about denying this is not related to the salvaged windows, because it talks about specifications submitted for the replacement, this is on page 2, specifications submitted for the replacement window product do not illustrate a true divided light, and the specified product from the manufacturer, we're not talking about a manufacturer, we're talking about
So
salvage.
what we had from them up until kind of the last minute that these went out was the JELD-WEN product that had been proposed before and that the commission had continued before, and kind of late in the game got this additional submittal to say, we've found these salvaged windows, here are their specifications. So, yeah, I apologize that didn't get all... It was kind of trying to continue to tell you the story of what's happened here, since we've seen this one several times now, but that's referring to the previous proposal.
So the choices for the side and the back are what?
I'm sorry?
The choices for the side and the back are...
They're on there on the picture. It's the same thing. The sides is, you can go 1/1, or we can go 4/1.
The vertical.
Right. And the front would be 5/1, because that's what we have a picture of. We don't have a picture of actually the sides, but I got both windows, 1/1, or we can do the 4/1. I like the 4/1, but I got them both in case, because I know this is my last chance. So I want to make sure and I also bought a building there in the Arts District that I was able to buy another 125 windows, and we're going to restore that building too. And then right across the street from this house, we bought 2525 Francis, which has been empty for a long time. Of course, that's not in your district, but I am going to restore the windows even if I'm not, required to do it. We have about 8 properties in that area that we have invested a huge amount of money. And we invested a huge amount of money to find these windows. Originally, when I called about this property, I was told that it was okay to put vinyl windows in there. And of course, I called back after the fact, and that person was no longer working there. She was not informed, and that's the reason we're in this mess in the first place.
A realtor?
I'm sorry?
A realtor?
No, we called the city, and they told us that it wasn't in the historical thing, one of the girls at the office. And then it changed, and that's the reason the windows were all boarded up and taken out. But, we're good at following the rules.
Mr.
On
Cameron?
this one, we just got...
Just to clarify, 2525 North Francis is in an HP district.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's some more bad information. They said I was right on the borderline.
No, it's in an HP neighborhood.
Well, that's good, because that lady lived there 52 years, and her windows are immaculate, and she kept storms on them and bars on them. So those will go up and down.
We have some maps we can give you.
Okay.
So you can check all those houses.
So I've got some questions about the windows. On the photographs, the east side, there appears to be, and also, it's the south end of the east side. There's a horizontal, looks like a horizontal window. How do you do?
It's a bay window.
The bay?
That's a bay window.
This one?
Oh, that one there we put in. We're going to leave that there. The only thing that's there is the glass is broken out. That's the window that we use the base trim to make sure we use the same for all of it. That right there, we're just going to put 2 pieces of glass in. We're not changing that window.
Well, doesn't look like there's any glass in there.
There's no glass in there now. It's just the pane. If you look real good, you can see the pane around is boarded up. We're just going to replace that. And I took a picture of the glass because what we did while we were there, we bought extra windows to use the same glass, and we're going to recut it so the whole house will have the same glass.
I don't understand.
The windows that you're replacing,
Glass is gone, that's why it's boarded up.
the replacement windows, those are true divided light?
Yep, they're the exact windows they used in all that area when they first built all those houses. And I also bought extra glass because a few of them are cracked, but I'm going to use the same glass to replace those.
So in the horizontal window, it was not a window, there weren't
No, it didn't
vertical
slide back and
sashes?
forth. It just had 2 sashes
Just
in
2
it.
sashes in there.
That was all. Originally, back in the 70s or 60s, that was...
Fixed glass windows?
Yeah, fixed glass. They don't open either way.
How about the doors?
The doors, we agreed last time that I was just going to leave those.
Okay, so that's done.
They put that out. I was just going to leave those doors and paint them.
And the trim around the windows?
On page number 8, I have a design of, the trim around the window is going to be the exact trim that was there originally, based on the window that was left.
I see it. Thank you. That answers
It's
my
going to be exactly the same all the way down to the, except the paint.
Well, I, for one, appreciate your diligence in going the extra mile. So.
Boy, I did. Well, I didn't go through those 4,000 windows, but the 2 maintenance guys that went through all those windows for a week, they got to a point that the staff there was buying them lunch. But I was determined to get this done. And next time I'll do a little more homework than just a phone call.
Where was this place that had 4,000 windows?
B&B Supply.
Yep.
B&B Supply.
Downtown.
Now we know.
3rd floor.
Salvage heaven.
Salvage heaven. And they weren't cheap either.
Do any more commissioners have any more further questions?
So are we supposed to determine whether the side should be 4/1 or 1/1? He said he has 2 options.
Yep, you can go 1/1 or 4/1. I would like to put the 4/1 because it would match the front. But I would put the 1/1.
In a motion, I think that'd be appropriate.
I think that could just be a condition within the motion that you specify that the 4/1 be used. That's what seems most appropriate to staff based on the older photos that we have of the house. But
by the way, I'm glad that you denied that motion for that commercial because I just bought the property at 731 Northwest 21st Street. It's been empty for 20 years. But I didn't want to come up and say anything then, but they said enough. I'm glad 'cause that's going to be my personal residence.
Oh, we're good. Do we have a motion by any commissioners?
I'll do it. I move we approve HPCA 00153. Who is it? Not me. My phone's up here. With the, what is it? Mine's gone blank. Specific finding that the windows, all windows will be salvaged, historic, solid wood, single glazed windows, and that the front, or which direction is it, north? Is the front north?
Yes.
Be 5 vertical panes over 1, and the remainder of the windows be 4 vertical panes over 1.
Okay, we have a motion for approval.
With the trim as specified in the staff report.
Yes.
We have a motion for approval, HPCA 13-153 by Alan Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by George Bessie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion's approved. Thank you for your hard work on that. I did. I was trying to remember what I was doing.
HPCA 13-00190, 716 Northwest 41st Street, Crown Heights Historic District. Alyssa Weatherman for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage, elective, withdrawn. 2, construct addition to garage, elective. 3, construct outdoor fireplace, elective. And 4, install new driveway, elective.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Hefton. My home is at 716 Northwest 41st Street. I hope I can answer any questions you might have today. I'm not the applicant. The applicant is my architect, who I think is inappropriately named Weatherman. She was weathered in Santa Fe today and unable to make the meeting. I don't know who coined the phrase, everything that goes around comes around, but my home at 41st Street marks the second time I've lived on 41st Street. First time I lived on 41st Street was when I was 8 years old. And when I was 10 years old, this house at 716 became one of my customers of my afternoon Oklahoma City Times paper route. So I'm happy to be back in this historic neighborhood. In fact, my wife and I are delighted. I think it might have been a second guess had we realized what we were going to have to do in the way of interior repair work. But this project now we have, as a result of this being an old property, it's very short on closet space. It's very short on any kind of storage space, although we have almost a complete basement that is finished and in excellent shape and has a nice den or playroom downstairs. We still need more floor space, more storage space, and certainly we need a little more room, especially room and space for our cars. My wife drives an Enclave, and I drive a Suburban, and those early garages are not conducive to containing that kind of equipment. And then I have a small classic car that's very dear to me that I like to keep close to home. So that's the basis and the motivation for this request, and I would respectfully ask your due consideration of it.
Okay, we appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions, commissioners?
I have one of Katie. We saw this before, right? This application?
This was, I believe, on the agenda before, but was continued under the continuance requests. So we didn't, you had it in your packet, but we didn't discuss it or review it at all.
Okay. Okay.
We had, in the haste, we bought the house in October, and were able to move in mid-November, and with all of the unexpected repair work we had to do and everything, we had a little bit of miscommunication between our builder and our architect relative to what all we were going to do. She understood that we were going to have to replace the existing floor in the garage, and in addition to the add-ons. She understood that to mean we were going to demolish the original two-car garage, which was not the case. So that's what brought about the withdrawal of the first application.
Any further questions, commissioners? Is there anybody from the public that would like to address this CA?
I move approval of HPCA 13-190 with the specific findings found in the staff report and this would be for items 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, we have a motion for approval by HPC, on HPCA 13-190 by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
HPCA 13-00194 at 529 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of J. Krupp by Sam Gresham for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct house elective, 2, replace sidewalk elective, 3, install curved walkway elective, and 4, relocate and widen driveway elective. And this application was also seen last month and continued with the request for some revisions to what's been proposed.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
I'm Philip Krupp, Atlas Builders, and here for the, we made the improvements that you guys had suggested, and we're here for approval.
He's ready to go. Any questions by commissioners on the changes that were made?
What changes did you make? Can you tell me? Because I can see a little bit of a difference, but
I think you guys had a little bit of an issue with the height of the front window. What was the other issue?
I think they also changed the front door. It was,
Right. We changed the angular position of
and
the... Right.
They placed it.
Right.
yeah, I see that,
direction.
but then I see an elevation that makes it look like it didn't change. So I was just wondering, like this elevation still has it seeming like it's at a 45-degree angle, but maybe that's just...
No, it's...
That one is included purely for the comparison, the height comparison.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Thank you.
They didn't revise that drawing because all it's doing is comparing to the height of the house next door. But the other elevations are correct.
All right, thank you.
So did the overall height of the house change, or is it the same?
I think the overall height of the house is the same.
Okay.
Keep in mind, catty corner, we have a 2-story house directly right there. It is right there. So I think we're in line.
On the west elevation, we had difficulty with that double window. Was there any adjustments to that? It doesn't look like it, but I'm not sure.
I don't believe that was revised.
Okay.
I thought it was just the south-facing window that there was a problem.
We had talked about the west window and the fact that it's trimmed out, and with the piece in between the upper and lower window, that it reads as one large unit. Instead of as kind of breaking down the scale of that elevation, it's kind of an oversized big old element on the west side. That's what I recall that we talked about last time.
See, I thought that changed some. I thought that looks like different material than was there before, but maybe not, because the framing's still the same.
I think the key things that were changed were, as was already said, the orientation of the entrance to be facing the street instead of at an angle. The roof line has been altered somewhat with the gables over the porch and over the front window from what was previously proposed. There is an additional window on the north elevation where previously there was just one window and a door. The porch has been raised to have more height to it, in keeping with most of our historic properties. And then the configuration of the sidewalk, if you'll remember, there formerly was a curving sidewalk that just connected from the driveway to the front door, and they still have proposed a sidewalk from the driveway to the porch, but it's just parallel to the house, and then there's a more traditional front walk perpendicular to the street as well.
So in the staff recommendation, you said a continuance to get more facts. What?
So despite all of the changes to the detailing that the commission talked about at the last meeting, I think the overarching thing that remains is that it's just very tall and it's a lot of roof compared to the rest of the structures going down the street. There's essentially half a floor on top of it's essentially a 1.5-story house, and that's going to be a lot of roof coming up behind the front porch. When you look down the block, all of those other houses are 1-story and much more modest, and in looking at those comparisons, it just still seems to be out of scale with the surrounding properties.
I appreciate the changes you made to address our concerns. I still, however, feel that it is out of scale and the attached garage is not appropriate for this neighborhood.
The attached garage is not appropriate, you say?
Correct.
What about the 2-story house that's directly catty-corner to this property?
What about it?
You spoke of the height.
But I think if you're looking at the houses along this particular block, what is that, Dewey? Yeah,
yes,
Dewey?
Dewey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So between Dewey and Walker, I think you mostly have 1-story, very, clapboard homes, very simple, and I don't see that it contributes to the character of that block.
I have to disagree. I think this is a beautiful home. This would be brand new.
I think it's a good-looking house also. I just, for those reasons, do not feel like it belongs at this location in this neighborhood. But I think it's a nice design, yeah.
Okay. And even taking into consideration we have a 2-story home that is directly catty-corner to me.
If I remember right, there is only one 2-story home in that area. So
Actually,
when you look,
2.
okay.
Because there's one catty corner and then there's one next door on the other side of Dewey.
So this is.
It's the first house, but there's an empty lot and then one first, where that tree is right there.
I kind of agree that I like that the changes make it fit the pattern of the street a lot better. The fact that it's on the corner, to me, means it could be, this house would be more out of place in the middle of the block. The fact it's on the corner, catty corner from this 2-story, and this, Patrick said there's another 2-story down a ways, kind of mitigates the height. And the other thing is that slope of that roof going back, though it's asymmetrical, which bothers me a little bit, when you view it from the street, it does reduce the height in perspective. If you look at it from that standpoint, you look at it pure elevation, it looks taller than it would appear. So that's something to think about. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. If it was a gable, it would appear to be taller than a slope. So it's got some, I understand all that, but it's got some mitigating factors. It's an unusual lot. It's hard to
Yeah, I think it's a challenging lot that is going to have some discrepancies because if we can leave it an empty lot or try to get it as close to something similar to the others as we can, which a lot of those changes did that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the height necessarily because there are 2-story houses all around there.
Right.
And they have to be confined to that same block. I don't agree with that. I think visually there's 2 right next door to it. So.
Right.
Any further comments by the commissioners?
Is the lot undersized?
This was a lot that
Lot
had
split issue,
it formerly had, so at one time it had 2 houses on it. The house where this one now sits has been demolished, At the back, there was a newer house that we recently reviewed. He owns that property as well. We reviewed some work there a couple of months ago, and then they were able to split this lot. So it was just recently split to make that house at the back a separate parcel from the one that we're reviewing now. So historically, it was a typical lot, but at some point in time, an additional house was built on it, and now it's 2 lots.
But it was the placement of that other house that was built that kind of messed up the layout of the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was originally two homes on it, on this lot.
Right. Further questions?
Of course, the lot split was not done by us, I assume, but we
The lot
didn't we
split
have
did-
a recommendation.
The lot split, yeah, we made a recommendation. The commission made a recommendation on it, and then it went on through the rest of the process.
It was a recommendation to approve, wasn't it?
And the thought behind that for the commission, I think, was that as long as that remaining house is there, which we didn't see any reason that the commission would approve demolishing that existing house, that the front of that lot would sit vacant, and that it might be preferable to see that developed in something compatible with the rest of the streetscape rather than sitting and looking like kind of an odd vacant lot, missing tooth.
Sure looks like it'd be challenging to have a separate garage from the house that you would build there.
You know, it might, but I don't think that's reason enough to allow an attached garage, when that's not a predominant feature in any of the houses in that neighborhood.
The fact that a detached garage isn't possible? Marva?
Yes, sir. Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel. I drove around yesterday afternoon and this morning looking at new houses that have been built in Heritage Hills East and Mesta Park and Paseo over the last 5 to 10 years. And when I say we, I'm using the global we. We didn't get those right. You know, some of them are too close to the ground. Some of them have windows that are too small. Some of them have roofs that are too big. Some of them have roofs that are too tall. I mean, there's just things about them, and you instantly see that they don't quite fit into the neighborhood. And I think with our success in that preservation neighborhoods comes potential issues that we're seeing more and more all the time, which is more and more new buildings being built. And when I look at this, and we do it, we talk about the details and the windows and the siding and the materials and everything, and sometimes we don't get the big picture of it. And there's a house on 19th that's under construction right now, and I think it's being built with the best of intentions, but it does not fit into Heritage Hills East. And so you all might want to drive by that. It's in the 100 block. And like this house, there's lots of things I think are really pretty on this house, but I don't get this roof at all. You know, if it's a 2-story house, maybe shouldn't it look like a 2-story house? This looks like a big 1-story house with a big tall roof on it. And so I don't know what the solutions are for these things. This happens to be across the street from property I own, so I felt like I could comment on it. So there's lots of really nice things, and I understand it's a challenging site, but I sometimes don't know if a month on a brand new full house gives staff adequate time to answer all the questions and find out everything that needs to be done to issue an opinion on something when there's still so many moving parts on things sometimes. And I just think we're going to continue to be challenged by people wanting to build on vacant lots and wanting to move into our neighborhood. And I think these houses should be assets to the neighborhood and not detrimental to the houses that have been there for the last 90 years. So that's all I want to say.
Marva, do would you, what would be your feelings if this applicant just said, oh, what the heck, I'll build a two-story house?
I don't know that I would mind a two-story house as much as I mind a one-story house that doesn't really look like a one-story house. I mean, I could...
Well, that's that roof line, that asymmetrical. I kind of agree that it's trying to do something, trying to blend into the one-story house. It doesn't really work.
If it's going to be a one-story bungalow, it needs to look like a one-story bungalow and not a one-story bungalow that gave birth to a bonus room. I mean, that's what it looks like to me.
So. Mention one other thing that I just picked up on. I think they changed. It looks to me like the floor elevation was lower. It was like one step up, and it looks like the new elevation showed 3 steps, which helps a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was one of the changes.
So you raised the floor up.
Right.
I kind of agree with that comment that it would be better if it looked like a two-story house. I don't know if that would have set for everybody else, but that's the roof line's the odd thing to me.
Well, they have one more continuance available, correct?
Did you, well, here you are way in the project, but did you consider a two-story house?
It is two-story.
I mean, you know, a designed, appearance-wise, two-story house.
I did. I just really tried to go with something that you guys would like.
Yeah.
That's basically what I was trying to do. I thought a two-story might be too big. So I'm
But like you said,
absolutely trying to work with you guys. I thought this would be, a slam dunk.
Thanks for the information.
Well, I understand your eagerness to get moving. I also know there's some concerns on the board. We can do a continuance. You can continue to work with staff to try to address those issues that we know there are concerns with, or we can go for a motion. It's up to you.
I think we'll do a continuance.
Okay.
Be interesting, maybe for him, to know feelings about, is a two-story house just
I think he's getting mixed.
Yeah, he's getting mixed signals
from
about
this commission, though. In this commission, we can't tell him what to do, but we've got some commissioners who say a two-story would be fine because of the surroundings, and some that say it won't. I think he may need to just work with staff on what the guidelines say he can do, but we're going to continue to confuse him if we try to give him direction at this point. And I think that's unfair to the applicant.
I was trying to unconfuse him, but maybe I started off the wrong direction.
Well, I mean, we can't sit here and design his house for him because we've got other people from the public that need to be heard.
Well, just for me, and, by the time you get back here, I may be off at Never Never Land, but I'm not troubled by the two-story house issue. So
okay.
That's just...
So the height, this height wouldn't be a problem?
A traditional-looking house, but a two-story one here, and you're trying to fit it in on a small lot and make some money on it, and, I get all that.
So you would be good with that?
Yeah.
And personally, I would be okay with two-story house, too, because you have them surrounding. I'm not a big fan of the window on the west elevation because it either put 2 windows up or leave one out.
We'll see if we can do something with that.
And I think that also makes it look taller on that side, and that's not a division of a two-story, so it makes it look more vertical.
Okay.
And I would also be in favor of a more traditional-looking two-story house.
Okay.
As would I.
I agree. I think you kind of got
Boy, I wish I had this last time.
If you can as well, while you're looking at the two-story, could you also think about the garage and think about the appropriateness in that neighborhood for how that garage does sit on that site and how it's connected or not?
So what would you propose?
To not connect it?
To not connect it. Okay.
Correct.
But I would say that it's preferable to have a garage rather than no garage.
Absolutely.
I would encourage you to have a garage to put your car in instead of parking on the street, which continues to be an issue in HP District.
Right.
And I think on that side, if part of that design was changed so it wasn't that huge face and you had a garage in there, I think that would help that some.
Okay.
But I know you don't have room for a detached garage, and I would prefer a garage so you're not parked on the street. So I'm not against having a garage.
Okay.
I realize that we need to have places.
Okay, great.
If we can, to keep cars off the streets.
Great input. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Do we have a motion for continuance?
I move to continue HPCA 13-194 to the March, what would that be?
What is it? Oh. March. April 2nd or March what? March what?
Need to turn that thing off.
Sir, would you like the April or the March continuance?
Let's do April.
April 2nd. Okay, motion to
April 2nd.
Motion for a continuance on HPCA 13-194 to the April 2nd meeting by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Heather Clemmer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
HPCA 13-00195 at 816 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Brent and Melina Crandall for certificate of appropriateness to 2, construct garage elective, 3, replace paving at garage elective, and 4, install sidewalks at garage elective. And the Commission also saw this application last month and requested several revisions. The applicant is back to present those now. We did receive one letter regarding this application in support. It's from the Crown Heights Historic Preservation Committee, the Neighborhood Committee. It says, I'm writing as chairman for Crown Heights HP Committee in support of the Crandall Garage proposal. Here's our opinion of a couple of the issues that I understand came up in last month's meeting. Footprint size of new garage compared to existing. From the street, the new structure is no bigger and perhaps smaller than the existing in the east-west direction. It appears that the garage extends further to the south than the existing, but that should not impact the street view. Street view size of the structure. We believe that the open gable on the street side of the building is an appropriate reflection of the main house. Many of the original garages in Crown Heights have open gables on the street view. This one-story garage is very much in keeping with the original neighborhood. Thank you for considering the neighborhood's perspective on this application. I'll pass that down.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Brent Crandall.
Have any questions from commissioners? Improvement? Do we have any questions from the audience? Statements? Okay, do we have any motion from commissioners?
I thought they were nice modifications. I like the final result. We talked about several different configurations, but I think your final solution is a good one. And I would move approval of HPCA 13-00195, item 2, to construct garage. We should do these separately, as separate motions, you think? They're listed separately.
I think if we don't have any conditions or unique circumstances going along with the approval, I think you could probably do all three of them together.
All right. Items 2, 3, and 4 with the specific findings of fact as found in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of HPCA 13-195 by Jeffrey Parks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by George Massey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 13-00196 at 427 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application of Bruce and Roberta Stover for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace front bay windows required.
Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant?
Go back.
Okay.
I will add that just prior to the meeting, the applicants submitted some information on the remaining steel casement windows that are on the property, that those muntins are 3/4 7-inch thick, and the muntins on the proposed replacement windows are 7/8, so a difference of 1/8 of an inch between the two, just to give that comparison.
Sure. Thank you. We don't have an applicant. Do we have any comments by commissioners? Was that all the information you were looking for in your continuance?
We recommended continuance with the thought that the commission might want them to consider and research possible alternatives that were a closer approximation of a steel casement window, because that's what was there historically. And this is an aluminum clad wood product.
Okay.
So the present window is not a steel casement window, right?
Correct. The one that you see in the photos, this is an application where the work has already been completed and they're applying after the fact. So what you see in the photos is not a steel casement window. There are some other windows remaining on the property that are steel casements, as well as some other older replacement windows that are not steel casements. So there's several different window products on the house. They also did note that the trim and the framing around the replacement window will be painted to match what was there before. Right now it's very bright white, and so they said, you know, they're hoping that that will blend a little better once that is painted to match the existing trim.
Were they normal vertical casement windows? Is there a picture?
We have a...
I didn't see one.
I think they had panes.
Sorry?
It matches the configuration. The division of the windows matches the steel casement. If you look at page 12 of the staff report, that is a remaining steel casement window elsewhere on the property, and it was similar to that in design, just larger for the
page 12
window. Yep. Page 12, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I talked to the Stovers at the Heritage Hills meeting a week and a half ago, and they understand the situation that they're in, and I think they're willing to do whatever needs to be done to further examine the options. Our committee has talked about this. I don't think we have any strong objections to what's there. It's kind of an unusual house on that street to begin with, and it probably has met its own time frame for significance, but it is quite a bit different than the other houses on that street. So we defer to you all on what you think is appropriate there, but we don't have any strong objections about what
It's kind of a ranch style.
I'm sorry?
It's kind of a ranch style house.
Kind of a ranchy, Tudory something.
Well, I don't know why were the steel windows, nobody knows whether they were deteriorated beyond repair, I guess.
They did include some photos of the windows. Let's see. Starting on page 5 of the staff report are pictures of the previous steel casement windows as they were being removed, showing some of the damage at the bottom of the windows. They did report that they were in poor condition. They were leaking. The locking mechanisms didn't function anymore on the two side windows that had been operable. So I think we likely, had we seen this before any work had been done, would have supported replacement of them. It's hard to say without more documentation whether or not they really could have been repaired, but they were in poor condition. So,
well, I don't know why they wouldn't just go replace them with steel casement windows. I mean, those are available. It's puzzling to me. Look, I mean, according to our as original windows, if original windows can be demonstrated to be deteriorated beyond repair, new windows to match all the characteristics of the original are the most appropriate alternative. It's like that's where they go.
I think the applicant is anticipating that it's likely they might be continued to the March meeting. So since they're not here, if that's kind of the feeling of the commission, it might be appropriate to just continue it to that next.
Do we have a motion for a continuance to the April or March?
March
5th meeting?
I make a motion to continue HPCA 13-196 to the March 5th meeting.
We have a motion for continuance on HPCA 13-196 by Heather Klimmer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zackowitz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
HPCA 13-00197 at 704 Northwest 42nd Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Samuel Lars Noble for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace wood windows required, and 2, replace steel casement windows required. This is a property that has been before the commission previously under a different owner. There's quite a lengthy history with these windows. What's before you right now is that this is work that has already been completed, so we review it as if it had not already been done. Wood 1/1 windows that did have an aluminum wrap applied to them were replaced with aluminum clad wood windows, also 1/1, and then steel casement windows in 3 locations were replaced also with aluminum clad wood windows.
By the previous owner?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Lars Noble. I'm the resident now at 704 Northwest 42nd. Yeah, and I just want to say that I did not do the work. The previous owner did.
I know.
I purchased the house about a year ago. I'm sure you're all familiar with him from what I've heard. I purchased the house about a year ago, and just recently in the last 6 months was made aware of this issue. I haven't provided a lot of documentation. A lot of it's been what you guys have already had on file. So I'm here seeking approval and your mercy.
You can get one or the other, not both.
Did Mr. Turrentine provide you with a disclosure statement?
Yes, he did, and this was not disclosed. I knew that the windows were newer, that they had been replaced sometime since he had lived there. I was not aware that there was any sort of issue with the commission.
Well, since I live in your neighborhood, I'm not because I live there, but I'm familiar with this case because I was here for the prior 2 hearings. And he was denied on the fact that they were deteriorated beyond repair. He came back for a second application And in that application, he was proposing to install new steel casement windows in that spot in the front, and wood casement windows, as I recall, for the rest of the area. And we approved that, and he never did it. In fact, the inspector was out there one day and walked around the back where the man was tearing the windows out. They got pictures of the act going on. So I can't, for me, I mean, I brought the old cases here. I looked them up. I've kept them for all these years. And, I mean, I keep all my old files, but it's just a shame that he did what he did. He did whatever he wanted to do. That's the way it turned out. And it's my belief, like I read in the prior case, that here the windows weren't deteriorated beyond repair, but if they were demonstrated, then the new windows should match the characteristics of the original. On the second application, he was represented by one of the prior historic preservation officers, and they had found a manufacturer who makes steel casement windows and made this presentation of what would happen, but what they would be. So, for me personally, I'm sorry. Welcome to the neighborhood, but I mean, I don't mean that maliciously. I just think it was not properly done at the beginning, and it should have.
And I understand that. I mean, I saw that in the previous reports, and I guess he just decided he didn't want to put in the steel casement windows. I don't know what his thinking was behind that. I wish he just would have put in the steel casement windows for those.
Cheaper to pay the fines, maybe, or?
Well, it's obvious that he drug it out. I think that was the intention, to drag it out and sell the house and move on and not have to worry about it. When I contacted him about this, actually, and he acted like he knew nothing about it. And so after going back through all the records, I mean, he just lied to my face, basically. So
I will note on the issue of that we previously found the windows were not deteriorated beyond repair. We often have situations where someone is in a house and the windows are gone, and they've been gone for, any length of time, and we don't have any way of dealing with whether or not those windows were deteriorated beyond repair when they were removed. So I think while when this case was reviewed previously, we made that finding, I think because it has been such a long time since that work was initially done, we may have to make some accommodation with the fact that those windows are gone and are not coming back.
Shannon?
I was just going to ask Rowan, because he's got longest history on here, but this seems like this to me goes back to what we've faced for years. This property, did you get a residential property disclosure from the seller that specifically says, have you done any work, or do you know of any violations with any city organization? George, correct me if that's not the right wording. But that the seller has a legal obligation, and it's not through the realtors. It is a state of Oklahoma rule that the seller disclose anything, any zoning violations, any things like that. And, it would just seem to me that we've been dealing with this for years. Maybe the realtors didn't realize it was in violation if the seller didn't say on the disclosure, but nevertheless, it's something in historic districts that most realtors, perk up a little if they see something that might not have been approved.
Well, his realtor was actually related to him as well, so I'm sure she was aware of the incident. I spoke with my realtor, and she thought something would have been filed of record in the courthouse that would have notified that there was a lien or some sort of issue with the home. Now I know, obviously, I should have checked with the Historical Preservation Society.
Yeah, because it probably, Rowan, had it been cited, I assume? At some time it had been cited?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm just saying, this is, coming back for many years. We've had these issues of non-disclosure, and it's a problem for you that shouldn't be a problem for the public.
Of course, the last CA that was filed was approved in part. I don't know if there would have been an active, open case on it or not. That might have been hard. But the disclosure statements, yeah, it was a violation of that.
He should still, the seller, I think, would have, from what Roland's saying, he knew that he had some problems. So.
Any further questions from commissioners?
He was approved to bring it into compliance.
And he didn't.
And he didn't ever perform the work.
So with that approval to bring it into what we approved it to be in 2008, unfortunately that then needs to go to this new owner of what we already approved.
Well, the CA has expired.
Oh.
No, so
Okay.
he doesn't have a way of going back to it. But if you look in that file, you know, there's information about manufacturers and things like that. He came forth with new wood windows and new steel casement windows.
But can we go back on something that was already approved, although they didn't do it?
Yep.
Oh.
If someone comes in and applies for a certificate of appropriateness and gets approved, they have a year to do that before the CA expires, and once the CA is up, it's as if it never was approved, and they would have to start all over again. So we could review the same work numerous times.
Even if it's a violation? That goes
Well, I mean, if it's not a violation, then that's just kind of up to them, and if they don't get the work done, then that's not really our concern. If it's work that was approved to correct a violation and it's never done, then the citations will start back up again.
Okay.
Because the work hasn't been corrected.
Okay.
I think when we looked at coming in and applying for this, the thought was to apply for what's there now and see what the response was from the commission. We used to not allow aluminum clad wood windows, and the guidelines do now make an allowance for those. So on the replacement of the 1/1 windows, that is a product that that the guidelines do allow for now. The steel casements are another matter, but I think the thought was to come forward with what has already been done and see what the feedback was from the commission, and then go from there if we need a continuance.
I think I'd be okay with the replacement windows for item 1, because now we do allow aluminum clad. Any other thoughts?
Let's think through this decision. If a person chooses to tear out their windows and put on aluminum clad windows, then we wouldn't, if we approve them today for this particular case, isn't that going to be the way it goes in the future? We know what was there before. They don't go back with what was there before, but they can ultimately let their aluminum clad windows either stay on or put them on. So I just went back and looked through the guidelines, and you start with the guideline that I just read, that it must match in all characteristics. The next one says new windows of aluminum clad may be appropriate. If we approve this, we're interpreting this to say that you take out your windows, you can either put them back as wood or you can put them back as vinyl clad. I mean, as aluminum clad. And that would be a big jump away from what we've done.
I see your point.
Any further comments or motion?
I think that guideline is not written in the staff report, or I'm not seeing it. The guideline related to aluminum clad wood windows says, new windows made of aluminum clad wood with enameled finish may be appropriate as replacements for historic wood windows, since these may have acceptable, sustainable qualities and closely resemble a painted finish. So I just wanted to read that out loud, and that's 3.6.10. I think for the most part, we've been allowing aluminum clad wood windows on additions, new construction, the rear of the house. But that guideline's there for you to interpret where those are appropriate and where they're not.
And you said it said may?
It says may be appropriate.
Right.
Further questions? Roland? Do we have a motion?
Move denial of HPCA 13-197 with the findings.
Item number 1 and 2?
Yes, items 1 and 2. With the specific findings that the original windows in the house were wood windows and steel casement windows, that this commission previously found they were not deteriorated beyond repair, that the second application was made to replace the wood windows with wood windows and the steel windows with steel windows, and that application was approved. Further finding, the applicant did not execute that particular certificate of appropriateness, and more than 1 year has come and gone since that was approved. And that that new windows should match the characteristics of the original, are the most appropriate window to install.
Okay, we have a motion for denial of items 1 and 2, HPCA 13-197 by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second. I would just note real quick before we take action that this applicant does have all his continuances left, and I don't know how he feels about researching other proposals.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. What do you recommend that I research the wood windows and steel casement windows to replace all of the existing windows in the house, or?
If we deny him right now, then he's got to start all over with a new application.
I would love to see you do that, and I jumped ahead thinking that you perhaps didn't want to do that, but you didn't ever say that. So
I guess I don't know. I don't want to. You're correct. I mean, that's a significant amount of money.
Well, you wanted to come to get the opinion.
Right. No.
That's opinion, so let's move forward with the continuance if that's good with you. And
yeah, I think that's the best bet, because that's the best option.
Okay. Well, we haven't voted on yours yet, so you can just respond.
I will withdraw my motion to deny. And how long would you like to approve it?
When's the next?
Well, if we continue it to March 5th, then you have to have revised documentation into us next week. So it might be
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
Okay.
You'll like that a lot better.
Okay.
Yes, I move that this case be continued to April 2nd.
We have a motion for continuance on HPCA 13-197. Continues to April 2nd meeting by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have the information from those prior applications?
I have some I can get with Katie, because, I just need to get with the manufacturers and try to see what replacement windows will be. You have it for me?
HPCA 13-00201 at 822 Northwest 17th Street, Mr. Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Thomas Gruber for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install 6-foot gates at north face of fence, elective. 2, replace east fence with 8-foot fence tapering to 6-foot, elective. And 3, replace fence at back with 8-foot fence, elective. And a lot of times we are able to administratively approve fences. This is before you today because it doesn't meet the height restrictions as described for administrative approval.
Hi, I'm Tom Gruber, 822 Northwest 17th Street. I would like to address a couple of things. In staff's report, under considerations, I'd like to straighten that part out. At least according to the staff, the 8-foot fence on the west side of my property is my fence. It's not. I didn't build it. The owner of the house just to the west of me did build it. He got commission approval to do it because he asked me to pay for part of it. This would have been about 2002. I moved into the neighborhood in 1999, and he asked me to pay for part of that fence. I said, I won't pay for any of it if you don't get commission approval. So the way it exists with the 8-foot fence and the taper down to the 6-foot, as you've seen in the pictures, was approved by the commission. I saw the paperwork before I gave him the check. I just want to say that's not my fence. It shouldn't be grandfathered in. The commission approved it in. Now, I know things have apparently changed because by the way, let me first say Angela Yetter was very, very helpful to me, very courteous, and I appreciate that in case that makes any difference. The second thing I'd like to point out is under Rule 2.8.15, there's an exception where residential properties are adjacent to commercial or other incompatible uses. I believe this property has a very, or at least I think it is, after going around the neighborhoods since I've been living there. It has a driveway. It's in one of the pictures in your in there. It has a driveway that is owned by both my property and the property to the east. We own it together. As you can imagine, that has been somewhat problematic because it's a driveway that goes all the way from the street clear to the alley. Because of that, all of the tradespeople who utilize the alley to make repair work on all the houses in our neighborhood utilize that as a way to go from the street to the alley and back and forth. And even though it's a private driveway, it's used fairly commercially. So I would make that point. The second point I would make is the property owner to my east has a used car dealer license and has a used car dealer lot. There are today 4 cars in his backyard. There have been as many as 8 cars in his backyard since I've lived there. Our house has a full basement with windows, so the first floor is 3 feet above ground level. Before we bought it, there was a deck created on the back of the house. That's very nice, by the way. And it's very pleasant to go out and sit there. And the reason the commission approved the 8-foot fence for my neighbor on the west, as I recall, was because we had a deck that was 3 foot high and we could see straight into his backyard. And so that it was a privacy issue. Well, of course, sitting on the 3-foot deck, entertaining or otherwise, we're looking over a 6-foot fence into what amounts to a used car lot. And I know that's a different issue with the city, but it's an issue for me. And then we have trucks and vehicles that come relatively frequently up and down that driveway, because I've asked my neighbor to keep the driveway clear, because our garage, which is a detached garage, actually faces, this is a paved alley. And we bought the house, certainly I did, I don't know about my wife, but I certainly wanted that garage because I don't want to park my cars on the street. And so my neighbor to the east parks cars on the street with dealer tags on them, and cars in his backyard with dealer tags on them. And so there's a pretty consistent flow of traffic. I admit it's not a street, but a lot of people use it like it is a street. So I would kind of point out that I believe that's at least a possible exception. The staff has recommended approval for the back as 8 feet, and then it would drop down to 6 feet on the east fence as it goes up toward the front of, or excuse me, to the back of the house. If you're inclined not to let us do what's in the drawing, which I would still ask for you to do, I would propose maybe an alternative that you let us do an 8-foot fence up to pretty close to the back of the house, taper it down to 6 feet so that the gate then, nothing then covers the house itself. It would cover and allow us a little bit of privacy from the deck, but it would not go past the back of the house, if that would be acceptable. And that way we would get some relief from the traffic and I'm not suggesting to you this is an onslaught of daily traffic. It's not.
Is this picture of your driveway?
Yes, it's actually paved up to the beginning of my house and the beginning of his house. It's a paved driveway, and then it's concrete to where the houses start, the front of the houses, and then it's rock from there all the way to the alley.
And shared from back there to the alley?
Yes, it's shared. The whole thing in the property description is a shared driveway.
Okay.
And I don't know what it used to look like, because my garage was built certainly not since the commission took over planning in that area. It was probably built, my guess is it was built in the 50s or 60s. So I don't know what existed back there that caused them to do the driveway. My neighbor to the east has a garage that could utilize that driveway, but he doesn't use that garage for vehicles.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Any questions from the public? Comments? Seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
In your drawing that we have, you had mentioned you would be willing to taper it from the back of the house to the front of the house to 6 foot, but where in your drawing it looks like it's just kind of middle of the house is where you want to start tapering it?
Yes, what I'd like to do is taper, I think the taper from my neighbor's fence to the west, in my opinion, tapers pretty abruptly. And I don't know if you can see it in the pictures, but I would like to start tapering it approximately 8 feet from where we ended. And that's a little more gradual taper, and I think a little more attractive, honestly. And it also doesn't obscure the detail of the house.
The taper right there on that last picture, is that a full panel right there? I mean, it looks,
yes,
it's divided, but so that would be
it's full paneled, and he tapered it by, it looks like to me about, that's probably 4 or 5 feet. And I would propose going, like if you went back to the next upright, yes, and started tapering from that upright, or stud, or I used to do construction, but I didn't do fence construction, so I would call it a stud. But
fence post.
A post, there you go.
Katie, we really don't have a very detailed picture from that side of the house. I can tell from the drawing that the fence would be behind the covered porch. But is there anything, are there any other side features on the house beyond the covered porch? Since one of our guidelines has always been, you know, not to obscure significant architectural features.
There are only windows beyond the porch. Windows, no significant architectural features such as bay windows or that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's no bay windows. There are windows.
Yes.
A straight bank of windows.
Further questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Katie, did you find any record of that approval of the 8-foot fence? Because I know in the staff report it says that that fence would be grandfathered in until work has been done, but if that was something we actually approved, or was that under a previous guide? I mean, I don't think the guidelines changed.
Right. The guidelines have changed since 2002. I don't know that they've changed in regard to fence height. We don't have a record here of a previous CA for that, but the farther back you go, the spottier those records are, and just the harder it is to find things by addresses, especially since the CA would have been for the house neighbor. It wouldn't have been for this address.
Okay.
So we certainly could take another look and see what the CA was for that neighbor's property.
The neighbor, by the way, either was the president of the Mesta Park Association or the past president. I'm pretty sure. That's why he had absolutely no problem with. He said, "I'm going to get approval, obviously, before I do anything."
We don't do it that way.
So I for what that's worth.
That might be helpful to see, because I'm struggling coming up with a unique enough circumstance to allow something that we don't allow, that we really do need a unique circumstance for. I mean, the 8 foot across the back, that's fine. I mean, we can approve that today if we want. But the ones on the side, I struggle with finding something unique enough to let that happen.
Are you familiar with any other area that has a driveway that goes all the way from the alley to the street?
No.
And it seems like that's pretty unique to me. That is a very unique problem, at least the problem for me.
So your alley has no access at either end of the block?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes.
But they still use your driveway?
Yeah, they still use the driveway.
Well,
it's just a lot more convenient sometimes as they're parked. I mean, I admit I have not stuck up a big giant sign that says private driveway or anything, or tried to stop this, because I thought it would be fruitless to do that.
Right.
But I think it is unique. There are, across the street from me, there is a kind of a funny curved paved alley, and I don't know if that constitutes it's because people utilize that all the time as though it were a street, and believe me, people don't use our driveway as much as they use that, but it's fairly similar. It looks like it's something that can be utilized to get all the way back to the street in both directions, and they use it a lot.
There is one on 19th Street that I know of going from the alley.
That goes all the way back?
Is your alley, is it paved or is it unpaved?
The alley is paved.
It is paved?
Yes, sir.
And yours is a shared driveway?
It actually is in the legal description as shared, as the driveway is shared between his property and our property.
And is it one driveway or two?
It's just one.
Okay, that's exactly what we had on 19th Street.
And the only thing I could do about it, I suppose, is go to court and have it partitioned, and then I'd have a driveway. Yeah, have a driveway that I could then, I guess, stick my fence over on, and whatever you guys would let me do. But we like the driveway. We use it ourselves, and he uses it, of course, to park all these cars in his backyard.
That's another issue that you need to look at.
Yeah, I understand. I'm really not here to try to get him into trouble. I'm just telling you what the problem is.
Okay, do we have a motion? With lack of motion, it won't pass. So,
There's another unique circumstance, Jeff, that the fence is actually set back from the property line. It's not on the property line, post fence. That makes a difference.
It's not sitting on the property line because there's a driveway on the property line.
So it's set back from the property line, which...
Okay.
Can I come up with something for you?
You don't have to come up with it for me. I mean, you can throw it out there.
For us as a whole.
Right? And those sound like some pretty good thoughts for something that's unique. So.
George, that other driveway that you talked about, do they have a 8-foot fence at that condition?
There's no fence.
There's no fence.
Not by the houses.
Okay.
Because they have to, it splits off in the back so they can park in the back. One had a garage and one did not have a garage. And there was an issue, I was trying to ask them to get a shared driveway easement done with the title company through an attorney, and he didn't want to do that, and ended up asking about it later, because it's bad when someone leaves their car in the driveway, and that's what this other person was doing.
Yeah, and we had that problem too, and we've essentially worked those problems out about keeping the driveway open as much as possible, and I'm not concerned about that issue. I do think it's unique.
For the workers, I think you should put a toll booth in. It might be good.
A little. Yes.
Okay, what's the will of the commission? if we don't have a motion, then it'll die for a lack of a motion, so.
Staff can certainly look to find the CA for the other fence, if that would be helpful, and if people aren't comfortable identifying a unique circumstance with this one. Angela?
We can further attempt to document the conditions of the driveway to the east there. If you would like, we can photo document the alleyway and observe the types of traffic and the amount of traffic to some extent. I can take a couple of opportunities to go out and take a look at that, if that would be helpful.
I think that would be helpful for this commissioner. I don't know how the rest of everyone else feels.
Me too.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Continuance to March, is that sufficient?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For
Do we have a
me.
motion for continuance?
So moved to the March
Motion for continuance for HPCA 13-201 to the March 5th meeting at Jeffries Parks. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zachowitz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you for consideration.
Might we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah. We will be in recess until 4:15. Katie, next item, please.
HPCA 13-00202 at 3622 North Harvey Parkway, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of William Bates and Sabrina Rogers for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace fence required.
Is the applicant present?
We do have a letter from the Edgemere Park Historic Preservation Review Committee. It says, agenda item HPCA 13-00202 at 3622 North Harvey Parkway. The committee does not believe the circumstances asserted by the applicant are unique or in any way provide the rationale for an 8-foot fence along the side property lines. After careful review of the application and going by the property, we realized the site plan submitted with the application is not accurate and is very misleading. The footprint of the garage is backwards on the plan. The portion that extends out should be on the east side, and in reality, the east side of the garage is not parallel with the east property line. The property line runs at an angle southeast from the northeast corner of the garage. The fence is attached to the garage forward of what is indicated on the site plan and follows the angle of the property line, resulting in a much greater length of fence exposed to the street than the site plan displays. This is on the north side facing the street and is best illustrated in the staff photo at the top of page 8 in the application. An aerial photo of the property from the county assessor's website is attached to this email. I unfortunately was not able to print that out. That better illustrates the site. We agree with the staff in recommending denial with prejudice of the application. In addition to the specific findings included, we would add that a 6-foot fence is allowed on the north property line as well as on the south property line. And because of our technical difficulties this week, I haven't been able to study this and go through the documentation that was provided in comparison with this letter. We just received this yesterday afternoon. But in essence, they agreed with staff's recommendation that the 8-foot fence is not appropriate where approved or where proposed.
Who agreed with what? The owner agreed?
This was the Edgemere Park HP committee.
Staff agreed with their...
Yep.
Oh, staff agreed, okay. So what they're asking for, it was previously approved as a 6-foot fence on the side and 8-foot in the back, is that correct?
Yes. They had approval to install 6 feet on the side and 8 on the back as our guidelines allow under administrative review. And I know Angela's worked with the applicant more closely than I have, but essentially they are asserting that what we would consider to be the side is also the back and have put an 8-foot fence along what we would consider to be a side property line.
So the property faces to the west, so the back would be the east?
So they're saying this is the back?
But they're saying that the south fence is the back?
That is accurate.
Okay. Yeah, I read that.
Because the garage apartment has an alternate address from the house, the garage itself was built with quarters above that have operated as a doctor's office originally, and the current property owner also operates a business out of the garage.
But it's all one piece of property?
Yes, sir.
Are they allowed to operate a business out of the garage? Are they allowed to operate a business out of their garage?
I have not researched the length of time that this property has been continuously operating a business. City code allows for continued use as long as that use has indeed been continuous. If there were a year's lapse between times of operating as such, then it would no longer be allowed.
Well, if they're making the claim about a discrepancy between which is front and which is back, I would think they need to provide a little bit better documentation and drawings than what they have.
The county assessor's website indicates this is one property with 2 structures.
Sure. We don't have anybody here, but do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Not seeing any questions or comments, do we have a motion from commissioners?
I move to deny HPCA 13-00202, item 1, to install 8-foot fence with prejudice, with the specific finding the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, is not consistent with the provisions of the guidelines, and is not in compliance with the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in the specific findings in Section D of the staff report.
I have one question, though.
Yep.
8-foot fence is okay on the rear, isn't that right?
Correct.
Where do we return the...
We do allow the 8-foot fence at what's truly the back property line. And that was installed with a CA.
So we're really just talking about the side, the south.
Yep.
So in her motion, she does not need to state except for
We
the
don't
back.
really need to address the other ones that were installed in compliance with the previous CA.
Okay, so we have a motion for...
Is it with prejudice or without?
Talk about the south fence.
With prejudice.
We have a motion for denial with prejudice, HPCA 13-202 by Neil Crank Clements. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
HPCA 13-00203 at 2717 North Hudson, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of David Henshaw for certificate of appropriateness to 2 replace 3 front windows required.
I'm David Henshaw. I live at 2709 Drakestone here in Oklahoma City.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a recommendation for continuance. Are you still waiting for information? Do you...
You want the story behind what happened on the house, I guess? I bought this house at 2717 about a year ago as an investment property. Did not even realize it was in a HP neighborhood. Ignorance of my own, admittedly so. My tenant started complaining of a draft about this time of the year in February of last year. Actually went to Lowe's to buy some storm windows to cover the windows that were currently there. Through either a special order size, they weren't in stock, and so either through a miscommunication on my part or a misunderstanding on the clerk at Lowe's, he ordered me some real windows. So about 3 weeks went by. My installer, who's also the tenant who owns a remodeling company, called me. I asked him to go by and pick up the windows, and he said, "You know, you didn't get storm windows. You have real windows here." I said, "No, I ordered storm windows." Went back to Lowe's, and we argued a little bit. Not really worth the fight. They wouldn't refund them. He said, "Well, the windows are in there that are in-house now are trash. They need to be replaced anyway. Let's just go ahead. You're one step ahead." We made the exchange on the windows. About maybe, 5 months go by or something like that. Then I got notice of a violation of the city having no idea really what I'd done, wrong. And in the process now trying to correct that mistake and have a quote for some in my packet. There are some wood windows from Consolidated Builders Supply that match the original windows that were in the house when it was built. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get those wood windows put back in.
Okay, what further information were you wanting?
I think we were concerned about some of the alterations that were made as part of this window installation to the openings, and just better documentation of those and ensuring that they were returned to the original condition.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't actually do any alterations to the wood that was there, to the trim. That was done whenever they installed the siding. We didn't replace any of the wood on the house. I'm willing to fix that area to go back to original, even though I didn't do any of it myself.
So is it okay if we give you a continuance until you get that information for those new windows?
For the trim?
Well, I guess you have the new ones in here. You're just waiting for them, right?
Yeah. Okay. And I brought information on the trim today. I have a quote from my remodeler on the trim and what he's proposing to do. Okay. I'd like to see a copy of that, because I'd really like to get this put to bed and not have to come back.
I understand that. Okay. Questions from commissioners?
Are these windows sash windows? You disappeared from me. It looks like it says double hung tilt pack. Is that, are they just 2 wood sashes, or fits?
I did talk with Consolidated Builder Supply. It is a sash kit. It includes both the upper and lower sash and then the casing.
Okay.
Tilts into clean.
Tilt into clean.
That wasn't addressed. I just needed to know whether or not it was actually both sashes. I'm sorry.
Well, we wouldn't approve a tilt pack, would we? In continuing, can you check on and see whether these just are historic sash windows?
That's my
answer. Or it says tilt packs. That tells me it's one of those kinds that you can swing in or out to clean or something like that.
I think that's just for cleaning purposes. They match the design of the windows that were in the house originally, is my understanding.
Well, that's on the side. I don't think, if the product is made properly, I don't know that the fact that they tilt in should be a problem for cleaning. You buy new windows, they do that now.
Pardon me? What was that?
I think it might be appropriate to continue and allow staff time to review this additional material that was just submitted, as well as to maybe get some more detailed information on what you're concerned about and if that's going to affect the appearance of the windows with the tilt back.
Are you saying they can't tilt in? I mean, that's fairly common in windows today. They're new windows. They tilt in to clean. Are you saying these can't tilt in?
I'm not understanding what you said.
He's asking.
Are you saying they can't tilt in?
Well, the traditional wood windows that people use to put back are
These match the design of
just
those windows.
slide up and down.
I understand that. But these match that design. If they tilt in or out, that shouldn't have any bearing on whether they match the design.
I would agree with you on that, but maybe, can't say enough on the design to know, but.
I mean, they're the same design that was there. According to the pictures from the county website that Angela was nice enough to look at for me.
Page 3.
Yes.
Wood double hung.
No, they don't. Okay.
Aside from the tilting, are you okay with what they have submitted?
Mr. Henshaw is attempting to correct this, and I'm sure that he and I can work together to ensure that the operation, as far as cleaning the windows, is not going to impact the visual elements of these windows. So if we were to get a continuance, I think we can straighten this out by the next meeting.
Very articulate.
Thank you.
How far out? April?
March would be better. This has drug on for several months now. I'd like to get it resolved.
Okay. I move we continue this application to March the 5th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for continuance on HPCA 13-203 by Roland Tay, a second by Alan Brown. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 13-00204 at 429 Northwest 24th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Paul Properties LLC, by Tanya Turner for certificate of appropriateness to 1 construct addition to rear required.
Hi.
After receiving your consideration recommendation yesterday, I think it would be in my
Put
best...
that microphone down and state your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry, Tanya Turner. I think it would be in my best interest to ask for a continuance, and if you could point out what your recommendations would be and come back and refile this.
Okay. Is there something specific you were looking for in additional information?
We just didn't feel that the detailing of it, how the roof line meets up with the existing house, how the siding is kind of finished at the bottom, just didn't look appropriate for what we usually see with additions like this.
Is it basically, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, is it also odd that there are no windows on that addition?
Given that the addition is for a closet, so there's a reason there aren't windows. We do usually, when an addition is as large as this, see some sort of openings in it.
Tanya, when would you want to continue?
Next month, if I may.
Move to continue to, is that going to be enough time to talk with her about the addition?
I would think so. Yeah, that should be fine. Sorry, I'm about to be out on some leave, so I'm kind of looking to Angela because she's going to get everything on her desk. But yeah, if you're comfortable with March, we'll get with you right after the meeting. We'll get with you tomorrow on some revisions. And if commissioners want to chime in with any of their thoughts or concerns and guidance, that would be helpful as well.
Okay. Are you chimers around?
Have you made the motion for continuance?
I was going to, but thought Katie was asking some of the design experts to chime in on their...
And I'm happy, staff is happy to work with applicants, but it's always helpful if we're continuing something, if they have at least some sense of what the commission...
Right. No, I think from my point of view, the biggest issue is with the roof line at the back of the house. It seems like a very odd connection or detail for an addition. So that would be a primary concern.
Would your recommendation be to take it out with the other existing roof line?
To take it out with the existing roof line, to somehow work with the eave height. The way it drops down seems odd to me.
And is the site plan accurate on here of what the addition, on page 3 of 9?
I don't know if I brought that up here.
Where it says area of addition.
On the Exhibit A. Oh, now you're on the next page. Yes, it should be accurate.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it is accurate.
Okay, so it's actually lining up with the existing building. There's no setback a little bit.
I'm sorry.
There's not a little bit of a setback from where you're adding the addition to where the existing structure is?
What they did was actually, there was like a 4-foot extension of the house in that area, and we just added another 4 foot to it.
Okay.
The house originally jutted out from the kitchen around there.
Correct. The shaded area is what you're adding, correct?
The what?
The shaded area?
Yes.
Okay, I move to continue this case to the March 5th docket of the HPC Commission.
We have a motion for HPC 813-204, continuance to the March 5th meeting by Roland Tagg. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 13-00207 at 621 Northwest 42nd Street, Town Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Marshall and Connie Mungle by Josh Romano of Red River Roofing for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace roof at house and garage, elective. This is a roofing product that, to our knowledge, Commission hasn't seen before. It's replacement of a composition roof with this new product, and so wanted to have it's not something that's addressed anywhere in our guidelines, really. Our guidelines talk about metal roofing, but that really seems to be more directed towards standing seam roofs, that type of thing. And this is something that more closely intends to replicate like a composition roof.
Josh Romano, Red River Roofing. I'm open to any questions that you guys might have on the roof
So
product.
this is a steel roof with a composite layer on the top?
It's a granulated, a stone-blasted granulated layer on top, that's correct. It's a 26-gauge galvanized metal roof. It's stamped to give the appearance of an architectural
So it's
shingle.
stamped, it's not glued?
Well, I'm saying as far as it's stamped, the metal is stamped. I've got an example of it if you guys would like to see it.
I'd love to see it, yeah.
Bring the sample.
Okay.
We're used to it.
I also have pictures that of a job that we just recently finished, our most recent one, that I could.
The architect's got a new toy down there.
Yeah, it's a product that has actually been around for quite a while. The reason why you're probably not, completely familiar to it is up until really a couple years ago in this market, from a standpoint, it was,
Not
it's
strong enough, was it?
Well, no, it's a pretty expensive product.
You can dent too easy.
Well, it performs well. Now, again, if you have softball-sized hail that falls from the sky, there's not much you're going to put on the roof. Exactly. But this is actually a specific product that, from the manufacturer's standpoint, it does come with a 2.5-inch hail warranty. So this is really the only product on the market from a standpoint of really wanting to create longevity and, with a roof system that they're not having to tear off and replace every 4 or 5 years with. If you lived in Oklahoma for some time, I'm sure, a good portion of you all have probably had to replace a roof. And so that's where the significance of this product comes in.
Are there any comments from the Crown Heights Association, Katie?
No, I don't believe there were. They responded to this one.
And if you look at the pictures, from an aesthetic value, it looks, very close, if not, almost really replicates an asphalt composition shingle.
I'm glad you brought in the sample because that was my biggest thing of how it compared to something that somebody's going to, it's going to have the appearance that it is an
Correct.
asphalt shingle. No one's going to know the difference unless you tell them, and that's why I really want to see. And
Yeah,
it is comparable.
Correct. We just recently, just a quick story, we just recently did a home and garden show, that they had here in Oklahoma City. And the funny thing was there's 4 profiles of this product. There's a wood shake, a barrel vault, a tile, and then the shingle product. We had a lot of people walk out and say, no, I think, we're not going to go with the metal, but we like that asphalt product there. Well, it was the stone-coated steel. So it was kind of a testament to the aesthetic value that the product brings.
So they're 4-foot by 2-foot pieces?
I believe that is the dimension. It might be just slightly under.
So you do have a different appearance on it, though, because you have seams at 4 feet and 2 feet as opposed to...
Well, because of the shadow lines and the way that it's installed, it's still going to have that, it's still going to give the 6-inch exposure look that a normal architectural shingle would, as you can see in the photos.
What kind of vents do you suggest for these?
Well, that really depends on the style of the roof, the architecture of the roof. On this specific one, because we have enough ridge line, we can install a ridge vent.
Ridge vent?
Wow. Now again, this does differ from a normal composition roof where, ventilation is key, to keep from the asphalt aging, but this will, we still want to make sure that we provide adequate ventilation on this home for the air to move freely through the attic.
Do we have any further questions by commissioners? Concerns? Motion?
I move to approve HPC A13-00207 with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C or D of the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of HPCA 13-207 by Jennifer Bond. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Neela Crank Clements. All those in favor say...
Wait, before we vote, so in the past, this is a new product for us, and this is not the first time we've seen a new product. And I guess I'm specifically thinking about like the GFRC or columns that we recommend. And so we say, yes, go ahead and replace it. We're going to let you do this as kind of and the staff report talks about this, but fully vetting, kind of watching this installation go in and keeping in a case-by-case basis. So that's still the plan,
This is
right?
not quite a precedent yet.
Right. Okay. I just want to talk about that before we actually vote on it, even though it says it in the staff report. Okay.
Even though we're saying that this is kind of comparable to a composition roof, we're under no circumstances saying it falls into the same category of being administratively approvable as our standard architectural grade comp roofs that we see all the time.
Was it enough to then say that as referenced in the section of the motion?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's covered in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it talks about it in the specific findings. I just want to make sure we're all kosher with that. Yeah. Okay. Good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks for your patience. Surprised it was open.
Well, it really depends. We developed earlier last year a really good relationship with this manufacturer. Because across the state we're really, in all things considered, the top installer of this type of product as far as by quantity. And so, with this specific profile, the shingle profile and the shake profile, we order those in truckload quantities in one specific color for each, so that we can get it at kind of a commodity price. And so, I mean, I'll say specifically for the Mungall residents, to go back with an architectural Timberline HD shingle, it was the Class 4, but I think it was somewhere around $8,300, and this was just slightly above a $2,000 upgrade. And so when you look at longevity purposes and things like that, I mean, you can really start to, yeah, I mean, of course, it all depends on, how much waste factor we have to use and everything like that, but, I mean, it's a quality product. We've had it on some homes in the Quail Creek area for the last 4 years, and they've made it through the storms. And so it's a good product.
Cool. All right, thank you. Other business, item B.
This is merely for the commission to authorize a letter of support for a proposal coming from Preservation Oklahoma as the lead organization and several other entities to propose to host the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions conference here in Oklahoma City in 2016. The National Alliance of Preservation Commissions has done camp for our commission on a couple of occasions. We did it a year or so ago, and every other year they host a conference somewhere around the country. They are currently soliciting proposals to host it for 2016, and some folks are working together to try to get them to come to Oklahoma City. So they've asked that communities across the state that have historic preservation commissions provide a letter of support just saying, we hope you'll come to Oklahoma. And so wanted to get, if the commission agreed with that, wanted the commission's approval to submit that letter.
Do we have a motion for approval to submit the letter? Okay, we have a motion for approval to move the letter forward by Alan Brown. Do we have a second? Second. Second by George Massey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Administrative approvals. Any questions on administrative approvals? Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Ask Marvin and I never to come in. I'm sorry. But on number 10, and this is probably a question for Katie, it's the 326 on Northwest 20th. George, it's the one, kind of across the street from me, where they did the overlay. And it says here that it looks like it was approved to do it's not number 10, it's number 11. It's on here, it says overlay the front steps, front sidewalk, and front yard steps. Well, that was not approvable, I don't think. It was pink stamped concrete. And so now they knocked that off and just exposed whatever was underneath it. But did this, where it says this, number 11, were you approving that administratively?
Right. So the overlay was not approved, and Angela might be able to refresh my memory on exactly what happened. This was the Mary Jane Alexander, 430 Northwest 20th, with the administrative approval on the front steps, front yard steps. They had the overlay, and they took the overlay back off. And I'm trying to remember what the finished product was on this one. And we may have to get the file for you.
Well, it just looks like that you approve the overlay, which I think would be dangerous to have that in, writing.
You're right. The overlay's not. The overlay itself was not approved.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I can actually pull that file for you if you'd like and get back with you next week.
No, it's okay, but I think we need to have Greg go back out, because what they did, they had a guy over there with like a jackhammer taking the overlay off. So my question is, I wonder what the old concrete underneath really looks like. You would think it would have been damaged badly by removing a layer of new concrete.
They actually did have, initially it was shaped paving that went on over the sidewalk and those elements. She did have that removed. The work that was approved has actually already been done. It was removed. A new overlay was placed on there to cover cracks. And
a new overlay of gray concrete.
Gray concrete.
Oh, okay.
What is anticipated is that...
because all I saw was the stuff coming off, and I was, okay.
Yes. What is anticipated is that by the time inspection takes place, the paving is expected to match other paving on the site.
No, the color looks pretty good. Okay, well, so I guess this really is pretty accurate, that some kind of an overlay, just not the pink stamped. Yeah. Okay, that's what was confusing me. Thank you.
Thank you, staff is not announcing any withdrawals. City Council, none. Board of Adjustments, January 16, 2004, the Board of Adjustment continued an appeal from the HP Commission's decision denying HPCA 13-141 to demolish the one-story garage and construct a two-story garage until February 6th.
They are on the agenda for tomorrow. Everything was actually continued from that January 16th meeting because they didn't have a quorum. So they were continued to February 6th. That's what happens when you have a smaller board. But they have since come in and submitted a new CA, a new application for this same project with additional revised information. So they will be, again, asking for a continuance from the Board of Adjustment. So you'll be seeing this again.
All right. Planning Commission, SPED 734, consideration recommendation of rezoning of property at Jefferson Park and within the Urban Design District, Ward 2, to simplify planned Spud 734 was heard on December 12th for the properties at 417 through 421 Northwest 23rd and continued to January 23rd. Municipal Councilor? Okay. The next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is March 5th, 2014 at 2 o'clock. New applications for this meeting were received February 5th, 2014. New information on the projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, February 11th. The next workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, February 12th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main.
Patrick, hasn't that been postponed?
Yep, it says at the end of that workshop will be rescheduled, date to be announced. So we'll move that.
Date to be announced. Items from commissioners?
I think we wish Katie a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
Yes.
I will note, we said it at the beginning of the meeting, but just in case people out in TV land are watching now that weren't then, that we will accept applications through Friday of this week for the March hearing because our offices have been closed.
Okay, we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion from Mann-Zacharitz for adjournment. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.